They texted you at 2 a.m. "I don't know if I can do this anymore." And you put your phone down, picked it back up, and spent the next 3 hours making sure they were okay. You had work in the morning. You were exhausted. None of that mattered. Because how do you ignore someone who's falling apart? You don't. And they knew that. This is the manipulation nobody talks about. Not the loud kind. Not the threats. Not the control. Not the obvious stuff. The kind that looks like pain. The kind that shows up crying. That shares trauma over a first date. That says, "I've never told anyone this before," and suddenly you feel like the most important person in their world. And maybe you were, for a moment. But that moment was also the trap closing. Think back to when it started. There was probably a conversation early on where they went deep, too fast. Childhood stuff, old wounds, things that normally take years to share. You probably felt something shift in your chest, like this person trusts me, like you'd been chosen for something. You weren't suspicious, because who gets suspicious of someone being vulnerable? That's exactly why it works. Real vulnerability doesn't ask for anything. It just sits there, uncomfortable and unpolished. It doesn't land at the perfect moment. It doesn't make you feel responsible. But this kind always lands at the right time. Right when you were about to bring something up. Right when you'd finally had enough. Right when you were pulling back even slightly. And suddenly, the conversation isn't about what you needed anymore. It's about keeping them alive. Here's a real one. You were going to tell them you needed space. You'd rehearsed it. You knew what you wanted to say. And then before you could start, they said something like, "I've just been really struggling lately. I don't know what I'd do without you." So you didn't say it. You sat there. You listened. You reassured. You told them you weren't going anywhere. And somewhere inside, you felt like a bad person for even thinking about having that conversation. That's the mechanism. You didn't just get redirected. You got punished for almost speaking up. And the punishment wasn't anger. It was fragility. You can't fight fragility. That's why it works. If someone yells at you, you can yell back. If someone makes a demand, you can push back. But if someone breaks down, every instinct you have says fix it, protect, stay. So you stay. And you file away whatever you needed. Again. Now let's talk about the thing that happens at dinner. You're out together. You're in a good mood, actually. And then you laugh a little too hard at something. Or you check your phone. Or you mention a friend they don't like. Nothing big, but they go quiet. Not angry quiet. Hurt quiet. That specific silence that fills the entire room. And you feel it immediately, that drop in your stomach, that scan. What did I do? You didn't do anything. But now you're apologizing. Now you're softer, more careful, more focused on them. The silence did its job. They never said a word. They didn't need to. That's control without a single demand being made. You learned through repetition that certain moods of theirs require certain behavior from you. You adjusted, automatically. Like the rules were always there. You just had to figure them out. And you did figure them out. You got good at it. That's not intimacy. That's conditioning. The exhaustion this creates is specific. It's not the tired you feel after a long day. It's the tired you feel when you're always reading the room. When you check their face before you speak. When you water down your opinion because you already know how they'll react. You used to say what you thought. Remember that. Now you run it through a filter first. Will this upset them? Is this the right time? Should I even bring this up? You've become smaller, not because you wanted to, because shrinking felt safer than the fallout. And when you did try to say something honest, maybe you brought up the imbalance, calmly. Something like, "I feel like I'm always the one supporting you, and I don't really get that back." Normal thing to say, legitimate thing to feel. Their response wasn't, "You're right, I'm sorry." It was tears. It was, "I knew I was too much." It was, "You probably want to leave me just like everyone else did." Now you're consoling them for bringing up the fact that you needed consoling. You never brought it up again. That's the system. And it just locked another door. Here's the part most people miss. A lot of people who do this aren't evil. They're not sitting there plotting. They just learned, somewhere early in life, that being strong got them nothing. But falling apart got them held, got them attention, got them people who stayed. It worked as a kid. It worked as a teenager. And now it's just the only language they know for getting needs met. The pain is real. The trauma is real. But real pain can still be used as a weapon, even without knowing it. And you can bleed from an accidental wound just as badly as a deliberate one. The impact on you doesn't change based on their intention. Read that again. Because here's what's actually happened to you over time. You've started to believe that love means managing someone else's emotional state. That being a good partner or friend means absorbing their chaos and never adding to it. You don't ask for much anymore. You've trained yourself out of it. Last week, something hard happened to you, and your first thought wasn't to call them, because you already knew how that conversation would go. It would start about you and end about them. It always does. So you called someone else, or you said nothing, or you just sat with it alone, and somehow that felt easier. That's what this has cost you. Think about the last 5 serious conversations you had with them. How many started with something they were going through? How many ended with something you needed? You already know the answer. You've known for a while. There's a specific move that happens when someone in this pattern feels you pulling away. Not a big pull, just a slight one. Maybe you were a little less available, a little slower to respond, and suddenly there's a crisis. Not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just, "I've been really in my head lately," or a sad post, or a message that says, "Never mind, it's fine," knowing full well you won't let it go. And you don't let it go. You reach back, you re-engage, you close the distance. The withdrawal was a signal, and you responded on cue. This is the loop, not a cage with bars you can see. A loop, smooth, invisible, and circular. You get close, you feel drained, you pull back slightly, they destabilize, you feel guilty, you move closer, repeat, and every lap around, you're a little more convinced that their stability depends on you. Maybe it does by now. That's what makes it so hard to see clearly. The version of you that existed before this relationship, what were they like? Did they say what they thought? Make plans without guilt? Have needs they felt okay expressing? Because the version of you that exists inside this dynamic has made 100 small edits. Not all at once. One adjustment here, one thing you stopped mentioning, one boundary you let slide, because the reaction wasn't worth it. You didn't lose yourself in one moment. You gave yourself away in pieces, quietly, to keep the peace. And the worst thing? You probably defended them to other people. When a friend said, "That sounds exhausting," you explained. You gave context. You listed their trauma, their history, the reasons they are the way they are. You became their lawyer to people who were actually just worried about you. Look, I'm not telling you what to do here. Leave, stay, have the conversation. Don't. That's not what this is. What this is a mirror. Because most people in this situation don't need advice. They need someone to say out loud what they've been quietly thinking for months. So here it is. You're tired. Not of them, necessarily. Tired of being the only one holding things together. Tired of your needs being an afterthought. Tired of shrinking. That tiredness is information. It's been trying to tell you something for a while now. The question isn't whether their pain is real. The question is, in all the time you've spent managing their emotions, protecting their feelings, adjusting yourself to keep the peace, has anyone been doing that for you? And if not, what exactly are you protecting?